2 days and 3 nights. The accelerated time flow meant that players only had 10 hours left. The long table was silent after Mu Huixiu spoke. The 12 players in the room were advanced players who had experienced countless Black Tower games and faced life and death tests. The old man George might seem weak, but he had cleared the Black Tower's 5th floor. This powerful strength made it possible for players to find the monster hidden among the players more accurately, but it also caused players to hide and remain on guard against each other. Even now, Tang Mo didn't dare say that he knew the strength of everyone here. It was because everyone hid too well, which also made this game more difficult. The more they hid, the less they exposed. The same was true for the Black Tower monster. The East Asian player Yamamoto Takao opened his mouth. I haven't thought of a instance clearance method now. Lian Yuzheng stared at him. You mean, you haven't through of it now but you will think about it later. Yamamoto Takao stared at her deeply. Then he lowered his eyes and spoke in a calm voice. The method, I think every player in the room knows it. Lina Jafas let out mocking laughter while her companion Don smiled and looked at Yamamoto Takao. The Southeast Asian player Abdullah crossed his arms and didn't participate in the discussion. The old man and 2 American players frowned, seemingly dissatisfied with Yamamoto Takao's words. They hadn't opened their mouths yet when Mu Huixiu smiled. There is one thing I think we should consider. It is what Fu Wenduo said previously. She glanced at Fu Wenduo. Mu Huixiu smiled and continued, the 2 players who died the second day, their bodies were seriously destroyed. It is impossible to confirm if they had a fierce battle with the murderer before their deaths. Bai Ruiao, who died yesterday, his body told us that there was a struggle. Only Lina who died on day 1, she paused and added, I'm talking about Lina Jokul. Lian Yuzheng said, Lina Jokul showed no signs of a struggle. Mu Huixiu nodded. That's why Fu Wenduo said there were 2 possibilities and I think he is correct. First, the murderer is too strong and Lina couldn't resist at all before she was killed. Second, the other person is familiar with Lina and she at least knows them. Thus, she didn't take precautions and was killed by the other person. Every player agreed to spend daytime at the long table so that every word would be heard by everyone. However, players would definitely find a chance to talk in private. For example, Tang Mo's group of 6 had simple communications. Mu Huixiu knew Fu Wenduo's speculation and Tang Mo also know that in the past 3 days, none of the other 5 people had a chance to go out at night. Yamamoto Takao nodded gently. I agree with this speculation. Mu Huixiu kept talking. If I only base it on Lina Jokul's death, I can't guess which one is more likely. However, 2 people died the next day and one of them was also an American player, David Anders. The blonde American player squinted. What are you saying? Mu Huixiu stared at him. I'm just saying that an American player also died the next day. Belle Fauska sneered. Returnee Mu Huixiu, you don't have to act. I think everyone here knows what you are trying to say. You want to tell us that Lina, who died on the first day, was either beaten by a powerful player and couldn't resist or she met someone she knew. The 2 people who died the second day, they are 2 people whose strengths are very high. If someone wants to kill both of them at the same time, how difficult would it be? The most likely method is that 2 people joined hands to kill one person and then they killed their companion. Andre spoke casually, Belle Fauska, you said on the 3rd day that you know David Anders. Belle hit the table angrily. Fuck. I just said that I heard of him and I gained intelligence about him from others. Do you people in China never collect intelligence on other people? Don't you know each other? You are in a cooperative relationship. I saw you and Mu Huixiu pull those 3 players up onto Noah's Ark. Mu Huixiu looked up. Then you are admitting that you really know David Anders, not just heard about him. Belle was extremely furious. You. Enough, stop here. Mu Huixiu, what do you want to say? Belle's companion, John Brooks interrupted. We know David. We aren't teammates but we aren't enemies. We really didn't kill him. As for Lina, we've heard of her. She was in the western United States while we are in the east. She is too far away and we never had contact. Mu Huixiu slowly got up. Did you kill Bai Ruiao? John frowned. I said that we didn't. In fact, I hate that guy but I actually knew him for years. As companions in the same organization, there were a few meetings. In any case, Mu Huixiu looked up while a black weapon shot through the air at John. He is my companion. John dodged the hidden weapon. He looked back and saw it hit a fragment of the small puppet. Snap. There was the sound of the red whip. The Black Tower prohibited the use of props so the players' weapons couldn't show the original prop effect. Still, this didn't affect the use. John hadn't expected Mu Huixiu to suddenly act. He evaded the whip but wasn't fast enough. The back of his hand was struck. Belle immediately pulled out a gun and fired at Mu Huixiu. The blonde man and brown-haired man had a tacit understanding and joined together to attack Mu Huixiu. The rest of the players remained sitting and watched the battle. The battle started suddenly but didn't last long. There were only 2 rounds of exchanges before the whip that returned to Mu Huixiu was caught by Andre. It is pointless. Andre's dull voice was heard. They might not be the ones who killed Bai. Mu Huixiu looked at her companion before putting away the whip. Since entering the castle, Mu Huixiu had always been friendly. She didn't become angry even when facing Lina Jafa's provocation. Everyone forgot that she was actually a returnee and a returnee with 260,000 minutes of rest time. In the world of the returnees, killing players in the same game was the most common thing. Returnees were different from Earth survivors. A light shone in Lina Jafa's eyes when she saw Mu Huixiu's performance. After sitting down, Mu Huixu's expression changed as she smiled. Sorry, I was making a joke. Everyone, have you thought of a way to clear the instance? It was a simple action that deterred the other players. Everyone could see that Belle and John combined couldn't kill Mu Huixu. The strength of this woman was extremely terrifying. At this time, a laugh was heard. I now understand. You didn't fight just now to avenge your so-called companion. You want to tell us that even if we meet you in the evening, it is impossible to kill you. Or to say, you want to threaten us to not move against you lightly. It was the European player, Don Savic. Mu Huixu leaned back in her chair and smiled at the other person. You guess. Don's smile became more brilliant. The day passed and they dispersed. Before leaving, Tang Mo stood behind Fu Wenduo and said quietly, I don't think it is meaningful but I still have to ask. Will any player admit they had a chance to go outside last night and ran into my companion? There was silence in the castle. After a long time, Lina Jiafos laughed and said, stupid. Then she got up and left. Players left the lobby and headed to their second-floor rooms. Tang Mo's sentence was meaningless. From the start of the game to the present, and even in the future, there wouldn't be any players who admitted they left their room at night. It was because as long as a player died, they would unconditionally be suspected. Even if they weren't the Black Tower monster, they might be attacked by other players and killed. Tang Mo and Fu Wenduo headed back to their rooms. Before they separated, they whispered a few words to Mu Huixu's group of 3. Based on the overall strength of the 5 people, Fu Wenduo said, Lian Yuzheng, if you are selected at night, don't go out. The others can try and go out. As Bai Ruiao guessed the day before, the player who was voted on to have his ability removed was Andre, not Tang Mo. In other words, Tang Mo could still use his ability. Lian Yuzheng thought about it before asking, if I don't go out, will it affect the plan? Tang Mo replied, we have 5 people here. The probability of one of us not being selected is only 0.008%. The probability is so low that if it happens, the 5 of us must have very bad luck. It is too unfair if the Black Tower doesn't let us go out. If I calculated correctly, one of us must go out tonight and tomorrow. Night fell, the clock in the castle rang and there was a loud noise. A child's voice was suddenly heard in Tang Mo's ears. Ding dong. You have obtained a chance to go outside. Tang Mo's heart was stunned and he reflexively looked at Fu Wenduo on the opposite bed. He could hear that Fu Wenduo was still talking to him and then he heard his own voice. The tone of speech, the words he habitually used and even his way of thinking, this Tang Mo was exactly the same as the real Tang Mo. He talked with Fu Wenduo for 3 minutes and Fu Wenduo didn't find any abnormalities. Tang Mo had a deeper understanding of the Black Tower. He was now an invisible person. He opened the quilt and walked towards the door. Then, he passed straight through the door. The moment he passed through the door, the conversation in the room disappeared. In the silent and dark hallway, only the sound of the clock ticking was heard. Tang Mo stood quietly in the middle of the corridor. He calmly observed the surroundings and didn't see a person. He thought for a moment before turning to the attic. He took the stairs towards the 3rd floor attic. He had just stepped on the top step when he suddenly pulled out a gun, his movements smooth as the gun's cold muzzle pointed to the side of the attic staircase. In the dimly lit staircase, the black-haired youth stared into the darkness. He couldn't see anything but he knew someone was there. After a few seconds, a white-haired figure emerged from the darkness. George Anson didn't panic and calmly said, the person who came out is you. Tang Mo didn't put away the gun. When did you come and why did you come here? The old man replied, my room is closest to the attic and I was only 1 step ahead of you. The 2 of them hadn't finished when there were light footsteps on the stairs. Tang Mo and George turned to look at the person. From a corner of the narrow staircase, cold eyes emerged from the darkness and stared at Tang Mo and George Anson standing at the doorway to the attic. The 3 people watched each other. A moment later, George said, it seems that the 3 people here came out tonight. Me, Tang Mo and Abdullah.